Welcome to Face to Face with me, Borsu Rafipour. Today, I have one of the greatest musicians, conductors, and composers of our time. So please stay with me. Ladies and gentlemen, Maestro Loris Tjeknavorian. Welcome to our show.
It's very nice to meet you.
Very
Great.
much.
Thanks. It's wonderful to be here.
It's an honor to have you
It's
on board of the show.
amazing studio. My goodness.
Thank you.
So it's a very first-class studio.
Well, we were just showing the audience Carl Orff's Carmina Burana, and I know that you had a very close relationship with him. Could you tell me about your relationship with Carl Orff and how it affected your life and your masterpieces?
Well, this is to cut to long story. I grew up with the tradition of Zurkhane, listening to Shir Khoda all my youth, and Shir Khoda, I followed that Shir Khoda Zurkhane music into the Zurkhane, and in Zurkhane I got to know more about Rostam. From the start, I was listening to this beautiful music, and beautiful Zurkhane music, and the name of Rostam. I was very mesmerized, and then I made my mind to write a music about the story of Rostam and Sohrab. And when I returned from Vienna Academy to Tehran, I started composing the Rostam and Sohrab opera. When I finished the first draft, I flew to Austria and went to see Professor Carl Orff, because he was a great composer, and he knew the Greek tragedy. He spoke several old languages like Greek and Latin, etc. And I thought maybe he would also know about Ferdowsi, and surely he knew about Ferdowsi very much. And then so I went to see him. With great difficulty, I got the appointment to see him. Well, finally, when I got to see him, he came to the room in the Mozarteum and asked me where I'm from, and I said, from Tehran, Iran. And they said, well, what did I compose? I said, well, I wrote the first draft of my opera, and I want him to hear this, listen and advise me about it, because this was the first Iranian opera when I started.
Yeah, I heard about it.
And then I played a couple of passages for him, and he said, it's wonderful. Why don't you stay here in Salzburg and finish composing your opera? And I said, well, I was a student at that time, young. I was not anymore student, but I was a young composer. And I said, well, I cannot afford to stay in Salzburg. It's too expensive. Then he asked me to come and meet him in 2-3 hours' time. And then when I went to see him, he says, Loris, dear Loris, I got you a complete scholarship. Go rent an apartment, get your piano, and stay in Salzburg and compose your Rostam and Sohrab. So he's actually the godfather of my opera, Rostam and Sohrab, and he was tremendous. I mean, he was tremendous. His personality, he advised and everything else.
How old were you at that time?
I was then, I think I was 23 years old.
Oh my God, you were so young.
Yeah, child. I was very, well, as a child, really, two traditions. I grew up in two different traditions. As a child, living in Manuchehri Street and completely downtown, you know. Yeah. In one hand, I was listening every day Shir Khoda's music, and Zurkhane. On the other hand, once a year, you know, this Muharram time, I was mesmerized as his big drum on cymbal sound of the Muharram, on the song with the old men singing in one tune. It was really very powerful. And these two traditions, then I combined, influenced by these two traditions, then I composed my Rostam and Sohrab,
which was the first opera.
Based on these two traditions. By the time I started, it was the first opera. By the time I finished, it took 25 years to finish.
25 years.
But in the meantime, other composers composed operas, but I started, and I think I was the last composer composed an opera.
I read somewhere that back in 1966, you were an associate professor at Morehead University in Minnesota, United States, and for 4 years you were the head of the Department for Instrumental and Opera. And what happened? Why did you suddenly stop teaching? And what happened with the university world of yours?
Well, you know, university is not a healthy place for artists. You are loved by students and hated by faculty and the rest of it. It's not a healthy environment for creative work. And before I was a composer resident in Concordia College, and that was different. And then I decided not to teach, not to be. At one morning I decided I have to live as a freelance composer and conductor. I don't want to have a job, just depend on a monthly salary, depend on facing the same people day after day. I just want to be free like a bird. Travel everywhere when I want, wake up when I want,
and be
sleep when I
person,
want. I don't want to depend on anything. So at the time it was very, very risky thing to do. After a very, very secure job and good salary and position, I was associate professor, promoting to be full-time professor.
Yeah, that's what I
But
heard.
I didn't like this thing. Professor Tjeknavorian, Dr. Tjeknavorian, all these titles are so terrible for an artist. Artists have to have no titles.
Yeah.
No
Yeah, I
titles,
understand
because
that.
those titles are
They
detrimental.
limit the
And
creativity,
I'm
yeah.
glad I'm rid of all this, and I'm just Loris to my friends, to people who love me, and people who don't love me, whatever they can call, whatever they like to.
So, what we're listening right now is Paradis in Parisa Suite number 1, if I'm not wrong. And I love this thing. And I heard that BMW and Manchester channels, television channels, repeatedly used this in their introductions and stuff. Could you tell me what was the original inspiration behind this, and who were they? Who was Paradis and who was Parisa?
The Paradis and Parisa is a fairy tale story.
An Iranian
fairy tale story. Khanum Salak wrote the story, and Mr. Dr. Khoshnam wrote the libretto and then the words for it, and I composed. That was meant to be for children, but not really for children. It's not the children music. It's really proper, like Hansel and Gretel, a proper opera, but with a fairy tale story. It's similar like Mozart's Zauberflöte.
Yeah.
But so this music, when I composed and they were then premiered, and then when I performed it in England, it became so popular that Manchester Television started the transmission, daily transmission with my music, and ended with my music.
Yeah, it's so beautiful.
Became very popular there. And also later on, the BMW, when they produced one of their cars, and 007 or something like that.
It was a 7 series.
Something
yeah.
like the series, and they used this music and pressed thousands of copies to people who buy it. Well, it's a tuneful opera. It's one melody after another. It's a tuneful, and
it's beautiful.
I still performed. I performed a suite with many orchestras like London Symphony, London Philharmonic, and many other orchestras. This music.
You say with London Philharmonic Orchestra, back in 1975, I think you signed an exclusive agreement with RCA, and you worked with all these great orchestras and stuff. Could you tell me about those RCA years?
It was a tremendous thing. I mean, I was so overwhelmed. I mean, I was so happy to receive the exclusive artist contract from conduct from RCA. I was able to record lots of music with London Symphony Orchestra, like Rite of Spring, Stravinsky, Shostakovich Symphony No. 10, and Guyane Ballet, and Sibelius, many works recorded.
Was Beethoven's that
no,
also
Beethoven was different.
number 5?
But I record also other companies, like for Chelfand,
Beethoven was
Beethoven is that, and then for Philips and EMI was a great company, a well-known company. So I worked with many companies and produced, I think, over 100 recordings, maybe.
Yeah,
So
I read about
I was
it,
busy. I was busy composing. During the time I was a professor at the university, and I could not compose. that's why I always ask if I have a next position, a university position, it must be composer in resident.
Yeah,
I don't
that,
face
yeah.
a student. I have nothing to do with anyone. I just compose. So that was in Laverne University in California.
In
I did.
California, yeah.
So I composed that time. During that time, I composed again. But then during the time I was in England and working with an orchestra and recording, I couldn't compose again. You know, it's just conducting and composing are two different personality, two different things. You know, it's very difficult.
How long did that go? Like started in
Yeah,
1975?
like 10 years. Almost 10 years I recorded. So, but then I decided to really start composing, and then I finished my opera Rostam Sorab, and then many other works composed, many other compositions. At the time I have...
Which are all masterpieces, by the way.
At the time I have over 15,000 pages of scores and 5 symphonies, 6 operas, ballet, Othello, which was premiered in London, and back in London, and also in Seymour wrote a dance drama serial based with the Persian instruments. It was the first polyphonic music, instrumental music, with late Farnaz Payvar orchestra. So then I started really composing again, composing, and I love composing.
Yeah.
But there's one thing is funny, when you compose you can conduct, when you conduct you can compose, because they're totally different disciplines.
Yeah, I know, yeah. So one thing that has nothing to do actually right now with conducting, it is related somehow, but I was going through your history and I read that on Wednesday, December 7th, if I'm not wrong, 1988, 11:45, local time, there was this earthquake that took away over 20,000 lives in Armenia. And I have original footage here that proves that you were the person that gave hope back to the lives of those people who survived the earthquake in that time of Armenia. Could you tell me the story from your own perspective, how it worked and all that rally and everything?
I was living comfortably in Florida and New York when this earthquake happened. Then I decided immediately to go to Armenia. There was at this time Soviet Union, and fulfill the dream of my father, who escaped the Russian occupation of Armenia from the jail, and his family were killed by the Soviet army and everything like that, and he escaped to Iran, and my mother from the massacre and to Iran. They both arrived here and they married, and I was born in Bruges.
Yeah,
so I grew up in this tradition as an Iranian. But then I always remember, I always want to go and do something for the freedom of Armenia. So that was the opportunity for me. I gave up everything. I went there, and I was surprised. It was really something, it was God's blessing, because God was always with me. And I went there, and in a very short time, surprisingly, I became so popular.
Yeah, I heard that.
Then I walked 300 kilometers and raised so much money, and to build art university, start the orchestra, buying the instruments, rebuild the television.
The whole nation welcomed you.
The whole nation got involved in my
Over 1 million
walking.
people or something.
And the orchestra as well, and started the orchestra. And there was a tremendous, amazing time. And I became so popular with people that during even Soviet time, the last year of Soviet time, I managed to change the 2 major streets in Yerevan, which one was called Lenin, that was called the Red Army Street.
Oh my God.
I was so popular that when I announced it that these 2 streets has to change the names.
What are the names now?
The name Mashtots, and Mashtots is the founder of letters, our Armenian alphabet, back in 1,500 years ago. Because the other one was Grigol Lusavoric, which was the founder of the Armenian Church. And I said, and the people came, thousands of people joined me, and then we forced the city hall to change the name. It was during the last year of communist time.
Wow.
And then, when the referendum came, when the Gorbachev said the republics can be
September
independent.
1991,
they can be independent if they want to. They give the grace time, 5 years time. If they choose to be independent, they should vote for it.
And a referendum was supposed to happen, yeah.
And so Armenians, because they had so many wars with neighboring countries, they were worried about this referendum, that they might be again killed and massacred and everything else. 30% were only for the independence. So
and that was, I'm sorry, but that was 19th of September 1991,
yeah,
am I right?
And then the Prime Minister called me and says, "You are so popular, go please. It's embarrassing if the people don't vote, and so why don't I go and inspire people to say yes to the independence?" So this was a very interesting independence because it was done by music.
Yeah, I heard.
It was maybe one of the few independence in the world that the people didn't fight on the street.
A
They didn't kill
revolution
each
with
other.
music.
Because I immediately took the orchestra, symphonic orchestra, and I went to villages to see this and performed and give a concert and inspired people to say yes.
Yeah, and the referendum changed. Yeah,
and the referendum came 19th of September. I went on a television all night. All night.
When was that? Was that the 19th or was it the 21st?
19th of September.
That was 19th.
19th of September, I went on television and stopped this fighting, but people arguing who should do or not to do. We got them together and around the orchestra and music and all night by giving concert and on television. And people forgot about the differences and the music took over. And in 21st of September, there was 96% from 20%.
Yeah.
But there was maybe one of the, maybe, I don't know, another revolution.
Yeah, but
can happen.
It is the revolution
can
with
happen
music,
with music. But this was it really happened with music and nothing else but music. Everyone left everything and joined around the music, and it happened.
Wow, that was.
And the universities also, they
things,
built the university and everything is fine.
Yeah. And then you stood in Armenia, and you became the principal conductor of the APO. And then what was it, like 10 years later, less than 10 years later, 6 years later, 1997, the International Star Registry came and put the name of the star Pegasus permanently under your name. And how was it? How did they approach you? How did they tell you that they're putting a real star permanently under your name? Well, that's great, wasn't it?
It was really surprising because they were celebrating my 60th birthday anniversary. It was a big concert and people arrived and it was a big concert. And suddenly a representative from the Star Registry office came, English-speaking person, and came on a stage and everybody was surprised what he's going to talk about. And then suddenly announced that we choose a star next to Nixon and Kennedy or Queen Elizabeth and so and so, and that star is now going to be called Loris Tjeknavorian. So that was so everybody applauded, and I didn't believe this. I thought it was a joke, but it wasn't a joke because they gave me the map and exactly. And now I'm making a joke to my friends. I said, whoever wants to go to a star, I will not charge a visa. So
yeah, that's great.
You can go freely.
So have you ever tracked the star in the sky?
No, I never tracked it.
Do you want to track it? Because I found the software.
I love to see it. Yeah,
no. Maybe we should give it a try.
Maybe if it's beautiful
if the producer could help us here. And there's this software named Starry Night, if I'm not wrong. We could track it down, maybe.
If it's proven to be really as beautiful as they say, then I might charge double. I must charge a visa for it.
Okay, cool. So I just heard that you composed recently the Cyrus the Great Symphony, and you conducted with the San Francisco Philharmonic in San Francisco, California. Before we go in that, I would invite our audiences to watch the finale of that symphony, and then we'll be back with the audiences and with you.
I am Cyrus, King of the universe, the great King, the powerful King, King of Babylon, King of Sumer and Akkad, King of the four corners of the world.
What happened? I mean, no one knows about Cyrus the Great that you created. How long did it take?
Well, it took me many, many years. First of all, as a child, I was great. For me, Cyrus the Great is a great hero. He's not only the founder of Iran, he's our father. He's a great, great personality in the world by bringing human rights. No one at the time knew what human rights is, and he talked about it. And this symphony was performed or premiered, coincided with the cylinder. It was shown by British Museum. It was a great performance. And the story based on Xenophon and Herodotus history, which is part of that, is about Cyrus the Great. I studied that, and I made this script and the story out of these two historians, book from these two history book. And it is in 16 parts, highlights from his life. From the birth, when his grandfather was going to kill him, but he didn't get killed, and then he overthrew his grandfather.
Wow.
He became king of Persia. He created the empire with 28 kings around the country. And then, so the whole thing, until I composed until the time that he conquered Babylon, and
he became a king of kings.
and then he Declaration of Human Rights.
Yes.
So this was performed a couple of months ago in San Francisco. It was a great success.
It was just one time. It was just one time.
Yeah, but you know, the sad part of it that it works when you compose with big orchestras and so, and you need sponsors to come forward to record this kind of music. But so far, none of our composers, not me or other Iranian composers, have found sponsors to really go ahead and publish and record our music.
So if you have a sponsor, you would record.
Well, of course. Yeah. I hope that this will happen during my lifetime. Like other my compositions, I composed 4 operas based on Shahnameh, Siavash, and Zahak, and Rostam Esfandiar.
And they're not recorded yet?
And Rostam and Esfandiar, and no, they have not been performed.
Oh.
You know that is common among the serious music. If you write
I hope you
serious
find
music,
a good financier.
well, it's for me. I am a composer for tomorrow. It doesn't matter what happens today. They perform my music, not perform. I write music for tomorrow, and this is very important. That's why I don't take myself so serious to go and push myself and record. I take my work seriously, and if I take my work seriously, then this has to be for the tomorrow, for the future, after I'm gone. And it has to be so important, so good, well composed, that can stand 100 years or 50 years. So I live for tomorrow, and I don't mind if it's not recorded and if it's not performed, because I know one day it will be.
Yeah, cool. So I hear that you have been dedicating some of your time with Mahak, which is a center for children with cancer. And how long have you been working with them? And do you have any plans coming ahead?
Yes, well, I'm working for the past, I think, 6 or 7 years. I did many festivals in Tehran at the Mahak
which was
Center.
a charity festival.
Yes, charity, yes. And 2 concerts in Los Angeles.
Los Angeles.
And raise money for Mahak. And
do you have any plans coming?
I have plans, many plans. I want to give another festival to donate my time and my music and the festival, and not only for Mahak, but other charities too, because other charities, needed charities, and awareness of people through music, through art, and come forward, because we are all together one body.
Yeah, I know.
If one hand doesn't work, the whole body is. So we have to help each other. We cannot look left or right and forget about them. This is part of our body. We are entirely one body.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's why I feel it's important to help each other and help these kids, because they are our futures. They are future kids of this country, and I'm very proud of them. And some of them get held back, and they are great citizens of this country, and who knows what great scientists and great musicians, great poet can be. And that's why it's very important to really do a good work for all the charities. And so I choose my first 6 years, and I will continue to for Mahak.
I have to thank you for that, actually.
No, it's my duty.
Yeah. So about the future, that's the last question, actually.
Yeah.
Do you have anything upcoming? I mean, how can you give a good news to our audiences?
It's good to ask, because lately don't want to conduct too much because conducting is like a bird out of the cage and you cannot put back in the cage. Composing my life, I'm 76 years old and I want to devote more to
so
create more. So right now I'm composing for Jahan Pahlavan Takhti because in this summer, his 85th birthday, it will be a great festival. And so all over the world, people will come here to Tehran, celebrate his 85th birthday. For that occasion, I'm writing a big suite, orchestral suite, dedicated to Takhti, which will be a highlight from his life, from the birth until he commits suicide, or some people say.
And you're going to have a concert on that, right?
And this will be concert, hopefully, in summer.
In summer this year?
Yes, summer this year. So I'm working very hard to make
congratulations,
to live up to his name.
I'm looking forward to being that show.
Yeah, yes. Okay. Great guy, great person. When I was a Boy Scout, we were raising money for the earthquake, the terrible earthquake happened in Tehran, in Iran. He was actually also. He raised lots of money.
So you met him in person?
No, I have seen him as a Boy Scout. In Boy Scout, I've seen him. But I never talked to him. I was a kid. I was 14, 15 years old. He was a great hero,
Great. Thank you very much. I was so honored to have you today.
I'm very honored. I wish you all the well, and thanks so very much for this wonderful time you gave me. And,
thank you very much.
I'm also so impressed with this whole thing here.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope that we could have a little bit more time and speak a little bit more about the great things that you have done. The masterpieces and stuff.
I hope we'll meet again.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for being with us. And I hope
Thank you.
I think the show is over now. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let's take